When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there, all my listeners out there in internet land. Do you know, it's quite exciting. I am now coming live to 152 countries in the world. It blows my mind. It literally does. I didn't know there was 152 countries out there, but you're all listening in and you are getting involved with the show. And it's amazing. So thank you so much. It's the 15th of July today. And so we've been going for coming up 3 months now. And the key thing is we're sort of over halfway through the year now. So if you've got any goals, any targets, any plans for this year, get your bum into gear because you're running out of time. And we've got the perfect guest today to really kick you into shape and make sure that you hit your higher purpose. Because our guest today is one of the founding members of the Higher Purpose Project, which we have discussed with our previous guests, Ginger Kern and Dan Adams, who you can go back and listen to. Now, these guys are a powerful collection of individuals that have taken it on themselves to create a platform for dreamers, high achievers and goal setters to channel their passions and overcome their fears. With a tagline of "Be Your Own Hero," the project is going from strength to strength as the world wakes up to what can be achieved if we only take action. But this is just one part of what this lady fills her time with, as not just in group situations, but individually through coaching, workshop facilitating, and self-development, she helps others to identify their true path in life and grab hold of the life that they deserve. But how does she do this? How does she find the key to the lock where others have been looking for that key all their life? Well, let's find out about this, the Higher Purpose Project, and of course by starting joining up dots with the one and only Jeanine Cerundolo. How are you today, Jeanine?
I'm great. How are you, David?
Jeanine kind of told me how to say her name, and did I overcook it?
It was great. No, I loved it. It was so much passion. It's Italian, so it could be Cerundolo, and you said it perfectly. I love it.
Well, us Europeans, we just know how to wrap our tongue around a strange word or two.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for having me, David. It's a great introduction.
No, it's a delight because your other colleagues, Ginger and Dan, have both been on the show. And I feel really it's a kindred spirit because we're all trying to channel the same energy across the world, aren't we? You're doing it very much by group scenario, having people come to you, having seminars and summits where these high achievers join forces over a period of 2 or 3 days. And of course, I'm trying to do it by just blasting the words of the motivational and the conversational across the globe. But there's not that much difference between the two, is there, in essence?
Absolutely not. And I think that part of both of what you're doing and what we're doing actually boils down to individual connections, like the one that you and I are having, and that everyone at these, in the groups, in the facilitated process, they'll eventually just have a conversation with one person and one statement will blow their mind or open their heart. And I think that's what really makes the difference, is those one-on-one interactions as well. So I think that's the key foundation to getting together in the larger scale.
Do you think life is about making connections?
Oh, yes. I actually have a little quote on a tissue box that holds different things, not tissues. And it says, part of my purpose, that says, "I live and love to connect deeply with myself, others, and source energy." It's just my word for that kind of like inner what gets you going, the enthusiasm behind your voice, for example, that source energy. So connection is the name of my game, and I absolutely love it.
Well, I've got 2 questions. Number one is, what's in that box now if there's no tissues? That's intriguing.
Yeah, it's just random like stamps, checkbooks, like things that I actually need on hand.
Oh, that's boring. That's boring. I thought it was going to be something.
I should have said flowers or something.
Deep and personal. I thought we were going to get on that. And the other thing is, can you really pick up from passion? If you walk into a room and somebody isn't saying anything, can you feel the passion coming out of them? Because I think I can.
Yeah, no, I think that we do. I think, what is it, 80% of your body language is how you communicate, more than even the words you're saying. So I think that we do it subconsciously. There's a whole book about that called Blink, that in the first second or two of meeting somebody and before, you can read a lot of things, I think, about them, and know whether you'll connect. And actually, that's funny that you mentioned that with the Higher Purpose Project, because Dan and I had met for about 5 minutes and decided to collaborate in the future. So sometimes you can just, that there's some kind of connection, some collaboration to be had just based on that person's smile,
It's love at first sight, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is.
Did you, when you met up with Dan, how many years ago was it? Because it seems to me that the Higher Purpose Project is reasonably new, but is really now finding its feet.
Yeah, it has its legs, but it's grown them fast. It is about a year and a half from conception, I guess. I think we met at a meetup group in New York. So speaking of these one-on-one encounters, it's just, I tend to go to networking events very frequently, and New York is a great place to do that. And so we met there, and then one of the founding principles was this movie that I really love, that speaking of following your passion and your calling and your bliss, it's called Finding Joe. And I don't know if you've heard of it yet, but if you haven't, homework is to go home and watch this movie. It's about Joseph Campbell, the famous mythologist, and his work and legacy in the world. And it's all about following your bliss, really finding your truth. And I think your listeners will really resonate with that if they're at a crossroad or a transition of what to do. So not only, I'll get to how that relates to higher purpose, but I showed it to my very practical brother. I'm kind of like the black sheep in the family, or the tie-dye sheep, whatever. I do my own thing. But my brother was working in advertising and doing a very logical, normal track, and then saw this movie, watched it 8 times, quit his job, moved across the country to San Diego from Boston, and started his dream job of doing wedding videos, and now is a wedding videographer and full-fledged entrepreneur. So it's a very powerful movie. Be careful what happens to you once you see it, because then when Dan saw it, he got the idea for the Higher Purpose Project right away. So and then here we are. So it's amazing what those kind of films can do, and they speak to your heart about the hero's journey.
When he when he got into the film the third time,
yes,
you put a 5-year-old in front of a film and they will watch it 9 times back to back. But you put an adult in front of a film and they will watch it once and maybe again a couple of years later. That's kind of not normal behaviour. But did you think to yourself, oh my God, I've opened a portal and he's gone mad somewhat?
No, I thought to myself, hooray, he's drinking the Kool-Aid that I've been drinking for years. I feel like this movie it's because it's a documentary and there's a lot of different statements. It gives me chills and makes me cry almost every time I've seen it, and I've seen it more times than he in the past 3 or 4 years. It's almost like, for me, a go-to, like the Bible, like for me, it's just that's what I live by. It's almost like a credo. Just the words that each of these people say and the sentiments could no better sum up anything that I believe. So I really appreciate it. And it's very simple. It's what you said earlier about some quotes that we were discussing. There are things that seem simple on the surface, but actually those are the deepest things. Wisdom can come in small packages,
Well, I bet all our listeners are exactly like me at the moment, thinking, right, Finding Joe, is it on Netflix? Can I watch it tonight? But give us an overview of it, because I'm intrigued how this one film made your brother, I was going to say your husband then, but your brother quit his job and move over to San Diego, because that is powerful stuff, isn't it? So tell us what Finding Joe's all about.
It is basically, so it's a documentary. It features people from Deepak Chopra to Fleetwood Mac to Tony Hawkins, all these famous musicians and skateboard artists and healers, talking about what it means to follow your passion. I mean, David, you would love it based on what your show is all about. It's just, what does it mean to connect to that part of you that knows that you're a hero, that resonates with every movie you've ever seen? And that was Joseph Campbell's whole thing. He saw every story, and he greatly influenced Star Wars, the creation of Star Wars. He was good friends with George Lucas. So he said every story we've ever seen, every myth has the same trajectory where the hero, it's called the hero's journey. He hears the call to adventure and then he refuses it. No, I can't do that. It's too scary. And then he finds a mentor who helps him out, Obi-Wan Kenobi style, and he goes through tests and tribulations. And at the end, he gets the elixir. He comes to that prize after much hard-earned work. And then he returns to his community with it. And so that's actually a lot of what we do with the Higher Purpose Project, is we model the whole experience after this trajectory because we feel like all of us can relate to it to some degree. We are all heroes in our own journey and supporting actors to each other's hero's journey. So it's quite powerful as a concept.
So the question is on this, because I always think of the questions from the listener's point of view, because they're listening in at the moment, they're on the trains, they're on the buses, and they haven't got the chance to actually speak to you Skype to Skype. I almost said face to face, but Skype to Skype.
Yeah.
So do you think everyone has got a hero in them? It's just it's latent, it's like a volcano that hasn't erupted? Or do you think some people are just born to go through the motions?
No, I kind of come from the philosophy that everyone is both creative and a creator and thus a hero. For me, hero is not necessarily that you have accomplished XYZ and that you have blood on your face and you've come through slaying the monster. You know, it's not as dramatic as that. But I think that we all have something where we feel called toward and something we feel that we fear. And usually they're the same thing. Often fear can be a compass, can be a way to say, aha, that's what I have to move towards. It can also be a signal of danger, and you have to distinguish between the two. But a lot of times the things we're socially afraid of, I'll be judged for this. And maybe you can relate in, I don't know if you had any of this for starting your podcast. There was a point where this podcast was an idea without form. And you had to do something to say, I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to do these elements and this is what it's going to be and I'm going to reach out to these people. And that didn't just happen like a snap, you know, like you had to probably confront some things, I'm assuming, but you can tell me more about it, to bring that into reality and cross those thresholds.
No, you're absolutely right. I had many points. I had this idea, first of all, and I was at work, and I've told this story before, but hey, who cares? It's my show. I'm going to do it again. And it came into my head, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to speak to people across the globe about fantastic challenges and obstacles and all those kind of things. And I honestly, this is quite naive looking back at it, I thought to myself, this is unique. No one has ever thought of this before because I hadn't been in that environment. And then once I looked around, I realised, actually, there's so many people doing this. I almost stopped then and I almost thought, it's never going to work. You know, people are already ahead of the game. And then I thought to myself, no, I'm going to do it different from them and I'm going to do it better. And I don't know if I am doing it better, but all I know, that was my concept. So I thought, I'm going to do this. And I remember sending out an email to a lady. And in the early days, you know, no one knew of me in any shape or form. And I sent this email to this lady and this gentleman. And the very first email I sent, funnily enough, was to Elton John. And I just knew that he wasn't going to respond. But it was by sending an email that kind of asked for his help, but wasn't going to get a response. It was my way of kind of overcoming that starting fear. So I wrote the email, I sent it, and in my heart of hearts I thought, right, that's gone, bang. And then I did another one very, very quickly. And when I did that, the bloke came, it was Saturday afternoon, he came back so quickly, it was untrue. He went, yep, I'm on that. And it was, oh my God, I've got to do this now. I've got to do this. And so, I went through all those little steps of fears. And even when I had 34 shows recorded on the day of launch, I almost didn't press the button and launch.
Yep.
And it's just, you know, I look back on it now and I think it's madness. What was stopping me? And the only thing that was stopping me was the same thing that stops everyone. It was the fear of looking stupid.
Yep. It's such a big one. And I love to recommend things. There's a book I'm reading called The Energy of Money. And you think it's about money, but money is just an energetic currency. It's a representation of a lot of different things. So they say when you're trying to bring something into manifestation, you reach a point called trouble at the border. And I think that's so funny. You know, it's just like this threshold that's just like, now you're about to make it. And then everything, you know, in my world, we call it dreams and dragons. The moment you fixate on your dreams, all the dragons, and Finding Joe has this metaphor as well, all the dragons come up to play. They're like, well, you're going to look silly. Well, this person's doing it better than you, as you said, or this or that. And so I think it's funny that you said, you know, well, I can do it better, because I think that one thing that helps me is not having the element of, well, that person's better or I'll be better, but thinking I can do it in my own unique way and it'll be different. And so whoever resonates with me is going to be a different person who resonates with someone else and someone else and someone else. So there's room for everybody, you know, to do it their way.
But now that is a key part, and I want the listeners to focus in on that. What Jeanine is saying there is you do not have to be world conquering. You only have to be the best in your field. And if you create a field out there that other people aren't in, for a start, a small niche, you're going to win that game instantly. If you're going into a more competitive, once again, find the angle that makes you slightly different from them. And once again, you've got more than a head start to achieve your aim and win the game.
Totally. And I'll add one more thing to that, which is that you don't even have to be the best in your field. I know this because I teach yoga, and I struggled with working at a very elite studio in Manhattan and saying, oh my goodness, well, that person knows more yoga than I do, and this person can do a headstand better than I can, all the things, which is actually, for me, yoga is about self-compassion and loving and accepting yourself where you are. So it's kind of ironic to be competitive or insecure about other people. But, I heard some great advice, which was that you don't have to be the PhD yoga teacher. You can be a 5th grade yoga teacher, and you'll teach people who are in 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th, all the people who know a little bit less of yoga than you do. They have something to benefit from what you do know, even if you can't compete with somebody at the quote unquote master's level. So that really helped liberate me with, I do have something to share regardless of what it compares to other people's credentials. So I found that very useful.
So how bendy are you in the yoga state?
Yeah, it's funny because I tend to joke when people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late or this or that. I'm like, it's okay, I'm flexible. It's my job. So, I feel like one thing that I love is that every breath takes you deeper, and the bendiness changes from day to day. I went running 6 miles for the first time in my life. I was not that bendy the next day. It was very sore. So it's just about coming back to the breath and the moment and saying it's okay to be exactly where I am. And yesterday I could do this kind of pose, and on the left side, I can't do what I could do on the right side, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to be exactly where I am and just breathe into it and go a little bit deeper from where I am right now. Not trying to be somewhere you're not, because you can't get there you have to be exactly where you are if you're going to take the next right step.
Because I've never been able to touch my toes, ever.
Yeah, I find a lot of people who say that, and then they use it they say, well, I'm not flexible, so I can't do yoga. And I say, well, that's why you should do yoga. That's exactly a good reason to start.
I've got very long legs. That's my excuse.
Yeah.
My legs are like 3/4 of my body. I'm like a stalk. And
but then are your arms very long as well?
No, they're tiny little arms. No, I think they're normal
one thing
arms.
I like, they're normal arms.
I'm not like Yoda or something.
Yeah, when you're doing it, that pose is called Uttanasana. It's a forward fold. So when you do it, elongate first in Tadasana, mountain pose, reach up, and then when you're bowing forward, my favorite imagery really helps because the imagination is really, really a big key. So imagine yourself as you have a rod, like a towel rack, right under your stomach. And so you're rolling over that, and you're like the towel. So you want to be very loose with your torso and with your arms so that you're bending over that imaginary towel rack and keeping your legs strong. And I think as you do that and then keep breathing, you imagine your head as a big, heavy rock completely sinking, and you let go, because a lot of us still hold the tension. We're still holding our necks, holding our shoulders. So you just completely relax. Maybe like a willow tree, you can sway from side to side with the branches, which are your arms. And I think that already gets you about an inch or two. Maybe if you don't touch your toes, you get an inch or two closer towards your shins with your nose. So try that one next time and let me know how it goes.
I don't know if I will, to be honest. I had to do a handstand the other day. My kids are doing handstands, and they said, Dad, do it. And I go, yeah, I could do that. I used to be able to do handstands. I couldn't come anywhere near. I realised that part of that kind of flexibility and bending and all that kind of stuff. I know I should do it, but it's nicer to sit down. That's the number one thing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't should on yourself. That's something I find very, very interesting, is how often we say that to ourselves, that should or try is another big word like that. Like, I'm going to try to do this. And actually, if you think about a balloon and a needle and you're going to pop the balloon, now try to pop the balloon. In your mind's eye, imagine yourself trying.
Yep.
It's kind of a funny image, isn't it? You're just sitting there with a needle looking kind of silly. So either you pop it or you don't. There's no really thing in the middle. And should is another word that we get caught up on, like, and then it becomes a chore. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, is my philosophy. If you want to do it all the way, 100%.
I had Ginger Kern on the show, episode 32, and I said the word should to her, and she went for me. She went for me big. Went for me big time. It's a life coach thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I thought, "Oh, dangerous territory," and so I kind of pulled back from it, and I was safe. I was safe from ginger attack. But as soon as you said the word "should," bang, she was onto that one.
Boom. Yeah. It's one of those things our ears are trained to hear and to say, "Wow," the alarm bells go off.
So let's start joining up your dots, because what I'm fascinated about you, Jeanine, and anyone who is in the position of helping people and helping people overcome the fears that stop all of us. But you have those fears as well. You're human. You've always got those fears. So how do you go from that child through the transitional part of adult, being, I assume, lost like most of us, to be able to find your unique path where you're in a position comfortable enough to be able to then facilitate and coach and help people find their true path in life?
That's such a good question. And I think I'll start by saying that it's not always comfortable, and it's that my big thing is there's no such thing as arriving. So I can tell you that I'm in a place where I feel like I've accomplished the goals I set out for 3 years ago, and I'm doing everything that I love. And there's always a mountain right after the one you just summited, and there's always another place to be. So something I like to say is we're both a bud and a flower at the same time. So if you think about it, you are always completely whole and perfect. I really believe that. I think that right now, in this present, if you just take a breath, wow, it's like what you said at the beginning. You said you were doing fabulous. Like, we're fabulous. We're alive. It's great. Like, what are we striving for? This is just perfect. And you're also a bud. There's still, like, the nature of you is to grow and to say, let me do another podcast and let me get to this next goal. Like you started on the show saying, we're halfway through the year. Like, where are we going? So the trick, I think, is in lying in balancing the two and saying, I am both simultaneously and I'm okay with it, instead of seeing them as opposition. So that's always my task. You know, there's never a moment where, yes, there's a lot of moments where I'm like, yes, I'm so aligned. This is so wonderful. I'm on top of the world. But those are peak moments. I think that knowing that it's kind of like a peaks and valleys kind of existence, and it's all part of the journey, and just accepting it as it flows is just something that keeps me comfortable with being uncomfortable.
So the little 5-year-old Jeanine, if I'd asked her what she wanted to do with her life, what would she have said? Oh,
she wanted to be a writer.
And so why isn't she a writer now? Well, I suppose you are, because you write poetry and you blog and you do all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I always was very keen on self-expression, and my medium was writing. I love to dance. I'm not a good singer, but sometimes I sing when I feel like it, and I love to paint. And again, I have no formal painting training, but that's cool too, is when you're attached to an art form or a self-expression, sometimes you think you have to be good at it, right? The shoulds pop in. Well, I should have done this painting as well as the other one. The liberating thing for me with an art form that I didn't know very well is I could be terrible at it and there was no expectation. You know, it's like that I have no way to ruin this painting because it's going to be better than the blank canvas for sure. And I love painting now. It's just like so much fun to finger paint or put colors and do this and do that and just play. It's just such an expression of play because I'm not trying to be good at it. I know I have no skills in it, and I have paintings that I've done all over my room that I kind of think are they're quite meaningful to me. So
the 5-year-old, because the tagline to the show is connecting our past to build our future. Yeah. Because I'm a great believer, and I was a believer, and now I'm a total believer, that every one of us, if we looked back at who we were when we were younger, and the things that we loved doing, and the things that we really enjoyed, and the best thing of all, the things that we found easy, are the things that we should be doing now. But for some reason or other, we get lost on the way and we go into a job, an office job or whatever, just for the money because we think that's what it needs to be done. Because I know, looking at what I'm doing now, it feels so natural and it feels so much like I should be doing this. But part of me goes, why the hell wasn't I doing it 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And if I look back at my school reports when I was a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old, it was what I'm doing now. It was David likes to speak to people. David likes to have conversations when he should be doing this. And I think, you know,
he shouldn't be doing that. He should be having conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we all lose that, don't we? So the Jeanine of 5-year-old to 11-year-old, you was always on that path. Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if we lose it, David. I think that's the thing. I think it's always there. I think it's like a diamond. It gets dusty, it gets covered, it gets like a little bit dark and confused, but I think it's just always there. And I do lead a lot of meditations where you do go back to that inner child at different stages and see what lit you up. What did you love? How can you remember? What did you get on your school report card? What did others say? And you start to dust off that diamond and reconnect. And so I think connecting the dots is starting to reconnect with that part of you that's always there. I don't think it goes anywhere. I don't think it gets lost or it's away. I think it just needs to be uncovered or remembered, remind yourself, literally. So I think for me, I feel like for me, it's been really beautiful because I've known very strongly what I've loved, and there've been a lot. For me, it's been a question of how do I do everything that I want to do because there's so many. I'm a multi-passionate person. So that has revolved around three different realms. The first is self-expression, and within that, writing. The second is this, I'll call it healing arts world. It's yoga, it's meditation, it's life coaching. It's, the forms can be different. The essence is the same, but the way that it shows up can vary. And that's why we have different jobs and different ways that you express this through different projects. And then the third one for me is entrepreneurship / anything to do with having people get to the next step in their lives. So for me, for a few years, that looked like AmeriCorps jobs, which if you don't know what that is, or maybe you've heard of the Peace Corps. It's different nonprofits that get together to help people improve their lives. And so for a while, I worked with homeless and low-income individuals, and for another while, I worked with at-risk youth who had dropped out of the traditional high school setting because they weren't fitting the mold. And in each of these jobs, they seem very disparate. But for me, it was always like, here's a person, here are their dreams. How do we get them there? How do we get them a step closer to who they want to be and who they're called to be? And so these three things have been the kind of pillars of my life. And when I have been scrambling to make ends meet in New York City, waitressing and nannying and doing all sorts of things that didn't align, I feel the difference because I've known inherently always what I'm really here to do and what I love to do. So.
Well, let's play the words of Steve Jobs because I think they summarise what you were saying very, very nicely. So I'm going to play you these words. Back at 2005, he did a commencement speech to university fellas and ladies, and this is what he said.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
What do you reckon about those words?
So beautiful. I love it. I think that that's so true. I think that it's kind of like a connective tissue or a connective thread that you have to weave together. And I really think that we're meaning-making creatures. And I think that we make the meaning. And I think we can make the meaning easily afterwards. He's so right. When you look back, you can be like, that led me to that. And if I hadn't gone to that party, I wouldn't have met that person. It all makes sense, even the low points. And I think that's the beautiful thing. There's always a gift and a lesson from the points that seem like they're a breakdown. They can usually be a breakthrough. And so for me, it's a question of seeing if you can make that meaning even in right now. I mean, he said you can't make them going forward, but I wonder if we can. I wonder if you can connect the dots of who you are and what lights you up and what you love to do, so much so that you have a foundation to create the story that you want to create and invent your life as you would dream it. And then that way, when you're going to your next dot, you're going there intentionally. And you're like, this is why this dot fits in. And then be aware that, man plans and God laughs. And you don't always know what will happen and what curveballs you'll get. But, it'll all connect, as he said, in the end. So.
Do you know, that is brilliant. I salute you, and I will clap and do things and be cheering from a distance, because you're the first person to say that about those words. That can we be intentional? Can we look at ourselves so deeply and understand our core essence that we can actually make those dots into stepping stones? And not one person has said that in any of the episodes. And when you were saying that, I suddenly thought, My God, yes. Why haven't I thought of that either? That's brilliant.
Cool. Yeah, that's. I think that's it. That's the dots are stepping stones. You said it best yourself. I love that. Yeah, it is like just like I do believe in that. I believe that we are the authors of our own story, and that fits into my purpose. I think at some point along the line, I decided that being a writer did not just mean putting words on paper. It meant writing the story of my life and what did that look like, and that I could be an author in a different way, not just Jeanine Cerundolo, author of some book, but what is the story I'm writing every day and the way I interact with people and the way that I live my life.
Do you know you don't say your surname as well as I do?
Oh, no, I don't think I do.
No.
Cerundolo.
Yeah, put a bit of passion in it, woman.
I should. No, I shouldn't. I could. I will.
So your dark period, because everybody in life, and especially people that have found their path, and I didn't realise this when I started doing the shows, but now I realise it clearly, that the big dot, as I call it, the dot that where you find yourself, is normally 99% a dark period in your life. And it's not that where everything's going well for you, it's where you're struggling and you're not happy and you're kind of being forced into a situation of reassessment. Have you had a dark point? You were talking about sort of the waitressing in New York and stuff. Would that be your black dot?
No, I was still very persistent in that, and I still felt like I was like very, make it bigger, go big or go home, whatever the slogan is of New York. I was very wrapped into that. I would say it happened a few years earlier, or the year before I moved there, because I had to take a leap of faith to move there. So I was living in Colorado at that school that I was mentioning, the high school for these students. We like to call them at promise rather than at risk. So I was working there, and I got there, and this had been a big dream of mine, David. I had wanted to be at this school for 2 years. I'd applied, I'd gotten rejected. I applied again, I got in, and I finally got this fellowship to work there. And I got there, and I loved it. 2 months of bliss. And then 2 or 3 months into it, it was like the fellowship was ending at the end of the year. And I said, now what? Now what will happen? And so that felt like the big darkness was, I don't know. And so I had to start asking the questions. And the questions were, who am I? What do I want? And then how do I get there? And so I answered the first two within that year, and it took many sticky notes on my computer and many self-searching moments to say, well, okay, what do I know about everything you're saying? My childhood self, what I've always loved, who really at my core am I in this world, and what am I here for, and what do I want? That's something a lot of people actually don't know. Once you know it, it's not the end of the story. Then you have to go after it and make it happen. But a lot of people get stuck on, I don't even know what I want, and we have so many options. We live in a world of infinite possibility. So I think that was it. I get stuck in a darkness of the I don't know, and then if I do know, kind of those fears you were mentioning earlier. Well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if nobody likes it, or all those fears. And actually to link it back to Finding Joe, connecting the dots, one of the quotes actually in the question and answer session, I saw the producer, the filmmaker, live. He gave a question and answer session, and he said, when I was making this movie, I was thinking of making the movie, and I was thinking of it. And so I sent a lot of emails, just like you did, David, to people, to Elton John. He sent emails. Hi, I'm thinking of making this movie. Will you like to be in it? Will you help me? From the Joseph Campbell Foundation, this and that. And nobody got back to him. He said nobody got back to him. And so then the guy from the Joseph Campbell Foundation, who was also there, said 2 weeks later or 2 months later, I got another email from this director, and he said, hello again. You might have heard from me before. I am making this movie about Finding Joe, and it's going to be in it. If you'd like to join me, or if you'd like to be in it, please respond. And then he did. So there's a difference between saying, I'm thinking about this, I want to do that, blah, 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 and actually saying, all right, I'm going to hit that record button, as you said, hit the launch and do it, and then people can get on board and there's more momentum. So I think that's something that's always been my lesson to learn is I have so many ideas, and then how do you get over that stuckness, over that darkness enough to say, I'm doing it, and, join me.
I would join you. Do you know that?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
I'm sitting here listening to your words, and I should be writing notes down as I do at the time. And I suddenly keep on thinking, oh, hang on, I'm listening. I'm not writing anything. And I keep on switching off. So with Finding Joe then, what actually is the point of the film for
yeah.
the producer. That suddenly dawned on me. He was so passionate for that film to be made.
Yeah, he was.
Why do you think that he had to see that through?
Oh, he shares your same passion, Dave. He was very inspired by Joseph Campbell, but he shares the same passion you do about people needing to do what they love in the world so that they come alive. You know that quote by, I think, oh my gosh, Howard Thurman. It's don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go and do that, because what the world needs are people who've become alive. So I think that he, you, I all share this desire for people to just be lit up inside. And so he really wanted to make a movie that would share that message. And that is the point of the film, I think, is to inspire the viewer to get up off their couch and immediately think and analyze to themselves, well, how can I be the hero of my life in this way? And what can I do to, the way I say it is, following your bliss is when what you do is aligned with who you are and what you believe. That what you do is an expression of who you are at your core and what you believe and value. So I think that's when you're really aligned with your bliss, your true happiness, if you will. Happiness, I think, is an underrated word, but or like doesn't do it justice, but we'll use it because that's the one we have right now.
Because so many people, and I was one of these people, I used to read stuff all the time because I was trying to find that key. And as I said in the introduction, you find the key to the lock where others have been looking for that key all their life. You find that by asking the right questions or pushing them in the right direction. Because sometimes it's easier to see from the outside than you can see yourself. But I used to be reading stuff all the time, and I'd see people doing these amazing things. And there was always something like an elastic band holding me back. And when I found this that I'm doing now, it was like 5 years of elastic bands all got cut at the same time, and twang, I went flying forward.
Skyrocketing, yeah.
And it is like rocket power. I've got, I work damn sight harder than I used to. I hold my hand up and say that, when I used to be in a corporate land, for days I could float through and just kind of have a cup of coffee and then go off to lunch and then come back and do a bit of that. Now, here, it's driven. I get up every morning thinking to myself, here we go. And sometimes I get into bed and I'm absolutely whacked. But I wake up the next morning and I've got that rocket power all over me again.
Well, it's because you're actually fulfilled. You're not tired from being sullen and uncomfortable. You're actually spent. And that brings me to, actually I have two things to say about this. I want to go back to the keys for a minute, but I use the word God, pretty loosely. I was raised Catholic, but I have a more, I don't know, I don't relate necessarily to a specific religion, have more expansive view of spirituality as I've experienced lots of things. So you can use it how you want, but there is a quote that says, I want to go to God at the end of my life and say, I have no shred of talent left. I used everything that you gave me. And that's been really driving for me, is at the end of my life, can I look back at all the dots and say, I have used up everything. And being used up every day from using your potential and investing it in what you love, I think is very different from being weary and exhausted in a different way, where you're feeling you're resisting so much what you know is calling you. And so I think it's beautiful to go to bed fulfilled and absolutely spent, and then wake up and feel energized to do it again. I think that's great. And then what you said about the keys is really interesting, because I don't think I have the keys to other people's answers. And yes, I can grant them perspective, but it's only perspective as a mirror gives perspective. My job is to hold up a clean mirror that has none of my own stuff on it, none of my own projections, just the cleanest mirror I can, so that people can see their own things and unlock those keys for themselves, because they hold the keys to their own answers. And so if I can ask the right questions or hold the space or do something in that way in our work together where they can see themselves clearly in a new way, that's going to be the ticket. And one of my favorite songs right now, one of the lines is, "You've got the key, but I'll never keep my door locked." So I really like this idea of not locking ourselves up, not blocking what wants to be manifested, if you will, and just saying, okay, like, we have the keys, but what if we just kept our hearts and minds and spirits open to what's possible, and then just go from there with an open approach.
No, I don't actually agree with what you're saying there. I think, number one, your mirror must be in the shape of a key, first of all. So you're waving this mirror around, all nice and shiny, but it's key-shaped. And I think what you're doing, even if the people are finding their own key, they haven't got the courage to turn the lock themselves. You're putting your hand on there and you're opening the door with them. And I think that is the message, isn't it? You're actually allowing them to open that door and see what's the other side without being uncomfortable and scared of failure. And I think that's the key to it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to have somebody else there, because it makes it, you know that you're not alone. It makes it, I feel this way. I believe so much more easily in other people's dreams than sometimes my own. And I think that's very human, is that we can so easily see the potential in another and we're like, oh, you got this. And we want to be their cheerleader. And yet when it comes to ourselves, we are often our own biggest enemy, our own biggest critic. And it's harder for us to be as good of a friend to ourselves as we are to others. So it is very nice to be in collaboration in teams, or to work in a coaching relationship where you have somebody supporting you, as you said, in that way, to give that extra nudge to open the chest of treasures.
It's got to be done, hasn't it? This is a totally different show to what I was expecting to do. And it's a totally different show to pretty much any of the others, because we haven't so much touched on your life. It's more about, it's more the essence of Join Up Dots. And we're saying to the audience, for God's sake, if you're unhappy, do something about it, and it's not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. And some people will go their whole life and not find their thing. But if you really start looking and you start taking action and you surround yourself with the right people, you've got half a chance. And I would hate it if some listener out there is going to work every single day listening to all our podcasts, but not having a glimmer of a better life. I just need to sign up for an evening course, or go and help at a charity event or something, just to get that momentum going, because it's the momentum that will take you forward. It's got to. If you get up out of bed and you walk to the other side of the room, you have moved to the other side of the room. And it's the same as in your life. You've got to get up and take one step after another, after another, after another, and you're going to get somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the momentum works both ways. The inertia, as you were saying, if you're doing the same thing and expecting a different result, you're not going to get it, because it's always repeated, and then you'll just, as you said, it takes a lot to get up out of your habit, out of your routine, out of what you know. And so it doesn't actually necessarily happen overnight. But I really find that for me, what's been really helpful is having accountability partners. I get together with a friend or two at different times a week, and we spend half an hour to an hour on each, just focused on that one person. And we ask these questions and we think about things, and what are you working on, and what are you working towards, and what could you do this week, this month, one thing in an area that you feel unfulfilled, that you could fill that a little bit to feel that momentum of walking across the room, as you said. And so we hold each other to that, and you can create spreadsheets or whatever, but the next week you say, how did that go? How did your art museum go? How did trying that internship go? How did whatever? And now you have to do it because you said so. Someone else is watching. It's like when you go to the gym with a friend, they're going to be waiting for you at the gym. It's you're 10 times more likely to get out of bed and get there than if you're just holding the date with yourself.
How do people get an accountability partner? They're sitting in a job, and there's Big Brenda who sits next to them that they don't really talk to other than going to work, and they've got Jim on the other side, and that's kind of it. How do they find a kindred spirit? Or do you need a kindred spirit? Do you just need to have somebody who will task you with something and make sure that you've done it next week?
I don't know if you need to. I think you can have a lot of motivation from within for sure. But I do love the saying that says that joy shared is doubled and grief shared is halved. And in that way, I think that anything we do when we get to celebrate with someone who's on our side, and when we get to cry on someone's shoulder who cares about the problem as much as we do, it just makes the ride that much more bearable, pleasant, exciting, And so I think that I don't know. I'm a little bit spoiled living in New York, because if you are bored, it's your fault, because there's so many things. You could go to meetup groups, you could sign up for things. I mean, now we have the internet. Anywhere you have the internet, there's so many coaching programs, people offering these services. There's so much available. Even just if they can have access to your podcast, I think they can have access to the world is your oyster. So I think if one were looking for an accountability partner or something like that, it wouldn't be too hard to find someone to share the journey with you.
I lived in New York for 7 weeks, and I'll be honest, I was bored out of my skull.
No way! How did you get bored? There's so much to do.
There is so much to do, but I was on my own. I had to go over there to work, and I found that the office people that I was working with would go home in the evening, and so I was on my own. And the first few sort of weeks, I'd walk around and stuff, and it was the weekends. That was the worst thing, just being on your own for like 2 days. And I kind of closed down. I used to just go to the movies all the time, just so that I could go there, and I'd time it that I could go to one film, come out, go into another film, get a hot dog, go into another film, and I'd do like 4 back to back just to save time. Now I look at it and I think to myself, what I would have done, as a more mature man, is hire one of those locals to take me around and show me the things that I didn't know. But at the time, I just was like trapped in corporate land doing a job which I was good at, but then in the evening, everyone cleared off, going back to their families, and I was all on my own. I was bored terribly.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. And I'll kind of refer to our friend Ginger again, because she talks about the traveler's mindset. And I found that even before I lived in New York, I had my best experiences in New York as a visitor because I had more of a traveler's mindset. I didn't have things to do. There was nowhere to go. I just kind of wandered around parks and coffee shops and everything while I was visiting, and there was no agenda. And I found that I met the most fascinating people. They would tell me about places to go. It was just like one serendipitous thing after another. And that was because my mind and heart were so open to receiving that. Whereas sometimes, I'm not bored here because I live here and I have my work and things to do. But if, I also have less of that serendipitous encounters because I keep my eyes to where I'm going and I have an agenda. You have these expectations. I should be here by that time, X, Y, Z. But I think having some unstructured time in your life, and it's wherever you live, can leave room for that spontaneity. And that's always a good thing.
I remember the last time I was there, I stumbled down to ground zero before the sort of new business has all gone up. And there's a little church down there where all the firemen went in and rested in between fighting through the sort of terrible tragedy that occurred. And all the benches have got like black marks where the firemen would come in basically on fire, resting their boots and singeing. And it was one of those things that was so simple, didn't cost me anything to go in there, but it was so powerful that so many people were, giving their lives to help people. And although we're not giving our lives to help people, you've got to do that, haven't you? I'm now a great believer that we are here to help each other. And if more of the world help each other, I don't want to get sort of like all religious and all that kind of stuff.
No. And I think
that's what it's about.
Yeah, and I think that's what you are doing. I wouldn't say that you're not helping people. I hope. This has been great chatting with you. I know it's helped me just thinking about these things. It's fabulous, and also to I'm sure all your listeners agree that there's some nugget of truth that they're getting out of being able to have this platform that you provide, and also I think our life shifts a lot. I notice it for myself all the time. When I think about myself and my issues and my this and my that, it's a very narrow focus, and I really get stuck. And when I think about serving others, or I'm put in a position where I can help someone, even on a small scale, and I see this every day in New York, people getting up for someone elderly or someone with a child, people helping people with a suitcase or a stroller on the stairs. Every day I see somebody and get the opportunity also to do it myself. Be generous to a complete stranger. Are you lost? Do you need directions? It's beautiful. And so I think that we can do that, and that just having a service mindset. And I'm such a quotaholic, but I have one more. And it's the 3 things we want most in life: happiness, freedom, and peace of mind we can only attain by giving them to someone else. So I think that inadvertently, the rose, the hand that gives the rose gets the fragrance on it, that kind of thing. I think that you also are helping yourself when you help another.
You certainly make yourself feel better, don't you?
Yeah. It just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling. It's just a side effect. It's a good one. I think that's very useful.
Well, before we put you on the mic, Jeanine, and send you back in time, the sermon on the mic, to have a one-on-one with your younger self, where's the focus for, say, the next year, 2 years, 3 years? What is Jeanine aiming to achieve in her life?
Yeah, I have a lot of dreams. I've I've realized a bunch of them, and I'm living a life that I love. And as I said, there's always more to go. So for me, it's about really professionally taking the healing work to another level. I may or may not get a master's in some sort of counseling or expressive art therapy. I'm looking to continue working with the Higher Purpose Project and expanding our wonderful community and all the work that we do there to light up change makers to help each other with their dreams. I'm working on the poetry, which I would love, if we have the time on the mic, I have a little poem that I'd love to share because I think that would help my 10-year-old self.
Absolutely.
So I've collected the poetry that I've written throughout the years, and I'd like to either self-publish or send them to poetry contests or something like that. So a bunch of things. I said I have multi passions, so kind of taking each of those to the next level of height and depth.
I spoke with a gentleman this afternoon called Guy Vincent. He's episode 55, I think, and he's creating a publisher platform where authors and poets and stuff can self-publish their own books. And
wow.
I think I'll connect the two of you together because I think there's a need for the two of you to get together because, you've got a body of work which needs to get out there.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So I'm sharing it little by little. I have like a blog here and there, but I'm really looking forward to making it official. So yeah.
Well, good luck on that. Okay, this is the Sermon on the Mic, and this is the bit where, like time travel, we send you back to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back into a room and see the younger Jeanine, which age Jeanine would you choose? Would it be a 5-year-old, 11-year-old, or maybe it was just a few weeks ago? So I'm going to play the music. I'm going to remain totally quiet, and you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show. The Sermon on the Mic. The Sermon on the Mic.
Hello, darling, beautiful 10-year-old Jeanine. It's so nice to see you for the first time or again. It's really funny because in 5 years, when you're 15, your high school teacher will have you write a letter to me, to you yourself in 10 years, and you'll receive it at age 25, and you will probably cry. I think you did cry, because what happens is you tell me, your future self, not to stress, to that you will love and accept me unconditionally no matter what I've been doing or what I'm up to, because I am me and you are me. And to take it easy, be gentle with myself. And I'm astounded by the wisdom you already have at this age. And yet I want to remind you to take that same dose of your own medicine, because there's so many times that it can be easy to get scared or stuck or feel not good enough. And so I have a poem that I wrote that I want to share with you now that I hope will inspire you at 10 and beyond. It's called Testimonial. Let your life be a testimonial to this, that it is okay and beautiful to be you, that if you take risks, you might quake in fear, but you will discover your bravery, that you may wish for years to be everything you might become, while the deepest part of you knows you are already mighty, that life is only lived once in this body, in this mind, so there is no other choice but to have your soul shine through. Let your life be witness to these, that you have feared and faced your dragons and given them each a warm embrace, melting all their anger, defensiveness, and confusion. That you have wept and lost and been broken and have let all of that go, anything that does not serve, like sand between your fingers. That you have quaked with passion and trepidation, but taken a bold step anyway. And that it led you to green pastures, but before that, the triumph was the step itself. Let your life be evidence of the following: that passion is the spark that animates our being, and that it is okay to follow that spark and let your life burst into flames. That being a phoenix is painful and scary, that the explosion can shock you into stillness. But that transformation is one of the most beautiful elements in our world. That your truth speaks louder than your hesitation, and that your voice is a trumpet meant to be heralded and enjoyed. That your intention is the fuel for all your dreams, and your courage will make them manifest. Let your life clearly state this, that love is the destination and the way. That light is the freedom to open to your whole being, the shining and the shadow. That destiny is just a yellow brick in a winding road which we create moment by moment. That compassion and service never goes unnoticed, nor prayers unanswered. That grace can bless your every breath and serenity can ease your every ounce of shame. Finally, let your life be a testament to the fact that your tenacity outweighs your terrors, that your bold being outshines your worries, that your unabashed self reigns over fearful ego, that your deep feelings linger longer than your wounds, and that your love will fill oceans, that your life is witness to itself, its beautiful, beautiful self.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for that. And I hope the young Jeanine was paying a lot of attention to that, because it's powerful stuff. I can't really say anything other than, thanks so much for being on the show. And how can people connect with you, Jeanine?
Yeah, perfect. On Twitter, I'm right now at Zest for the Quest, all that about loving the journey. On Facebook, it's Jeanine, Cerundolo, or my email is the same, J, and then Cerundolo. And website is also myname.com. So any of those ways or all of the above, I would love to hear from people. I'm very open and very receptive and love conversing and meeting new friends. So.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up the dots of your life. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because that's the beauty of this show. You can come back as many times as you want because you're constantly creating more dots to follow. And I believe the only way to build our future is by connecting our past. Jeanine Cerundolo, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.